Yes.
I'm seeing it.
Yep.
Mayor, are you seeing it too?
Not up yet.
It's up there.
Okay.
Good.
We're good.
Good. Okay. I call the Norton City Council regular council meeting for Monday, June 24th, 2019 to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silent reflection. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. Would the clerk call the roll, please?
Mr. Gaynor?
Here.
Mr. McClone?
Mr. McGlone is excused.
Mr. Carratt?
Here.
Mr. Towsley?
Here.
Ms. Whipke?
Here.
Mr. Pelot?
Here.
Mr. Kernan?
Here. Communications from the public. We're going to start out with Development Finance Authority of Summit County, Mr. Burnham. What's that?
And Ms. Moritz coming up too.
We have a couple handouts for council before we get started. So this is Allison Moritz is from our office too, helps us with a lot of our economic development finance activity. All right, so we're here tonight to talk about something that is in the process of being rolled out into Summit County called residential PACE, Property Assessed Clean Energy. The City of Norton's already adopted a commercial property assessed clean energy plan, and the Development Finance Authority is very interested in that concept in particular because we finance commercial enterprises, and we've actually done a couple of projects through PACE, including something not too long ago we did in Barberton. We run an entity called the Energy Special Improvement District, the Akron Summit County ESID. And the ESID's already adopted a commercial plan. We've been going out to different communities around the county and talking about opting into that plan, which Norton has done. And now we're in the process of asking the communities to consider opting into our residential plan. We're going to talk a little bit more specifically about a couple things related to it. But I would tell you that we're just in the process of rolling this out. And the infrastructure to actually run it is going to take several months to put together. We're working with a private company out of California called Renovate America. They do residential PACE financing in California, Florida, and Missouri. The first 4 counties in Ohio will be Summit, Franklin, Lucas, and Cuyahoga. We have entered into a cooperative agreement with them, as well as the financing authorities who are similar to us in those counties to help bring this program to our communities. These 4 counties in the state of Ohio will be the first public entities at the front end of the rollout to put together a consumer, that's the word I'm looking for. Consumer protections. And Allison's going to talk a little bit more specifically about those. But as part of the implementing this plan, we did not want to bring an entity into Ohio that did not have consumer protections that were enforceable. Primarily, that's going to relate to Renovate's vetting and training and certification of contractors that will offer their program. And that's one of the reasons why it's going to take a few months to put this together. It's going to take them some time to identify those people and train them and get them certified to begin to go out and sell the program. Second thing about the program is there are other entities similar to Renovate that do this stuff around the country, and if they come into Summit County or any county in Ohio, they're going to have to abide by the same consumer protections, which you will be adopting along with your residential plan that you're considering tonight. So I'm going to have Allison talk a little bit about it, and then I'm going to come back and maybe specifically talk about the kind of things your residents will be able to do after we talk about the protections. Okay.
All right, so thank you for having us here tonight. As Chris said, the City of Norton is already part of our Energy Special Improvement District for commercial properties. And the City of Norton was one of the first communities within Summit County to adopt that legislation to join the commercial ESID. The residential ESID functions a lot like the commercial ESID in so much as it's a financing mechanism in order to finance energy improvements to your home instead of to a business. And as Chris said, this program is coming with some fairly hefty consumer protections in order to protect your residents who may want to use this financing. So there's going to be minimum FICO score requirements. So the contractor will be able to offer this financing at point of sale, but they're going to be using technology provided by Renovate America. And this technology will allow Renovate America's contractors that have been trained by Renovate America and vetted through them to check the credit score of the homeowner, check the debt to ratio income in order to calculate the homeowner's ability to pay. The energy improvement financing on a home can only be done by a homeowner, so the homeowner would have to consent to it. And then the mechanism for the repayment is that there's a special assessment placed on that homeowner's tax bill. It's a voluntary special assessment that will span anywhere from 5 years up to 10 or 15 years, depending on what kind of energy improvements that they'll be financing. Now, with the Energy Special Improvement District, the City Council has to approve each and every financing in the commercial ESID. But in the residential ESID, the City Council can opt in, and the program would be available theoretically to any of your residents that would meet these credit standards, and the City Council wouldn't have to approve each and every one. With that said, the City Council can also opt out at any time. So if you opt into the residential PACE program and in a year or 2 or 10 years you find that it's not benefiting your residents, you can opt out at any time. And some other property requirements of using residential PACE financing is that the property owner has to be current on their mortgage payment. The property owner can't have any involuntary liens over a certain amount, and the property owner has to be current on its taxes as well. So those are all some protections that are built right into the legislation. Ohio will be, like Chris said, the 4th state that is doing residential PACE financing, and it'll be the 1st state that does this rollout with those built-in consumer protections in place. So we really think it's a strong program.
Completely voluntary on the part of the property owner. There's no recourse to the community. You're only agreeing to opt into the residential plan similar to what you did with, when you opted into the commercial plan. To give you an analogy, the project we did in Barberton was a company called Akron Rubber Development Lab on Robinson Avenue. I think it was an old B&W property. We did about $2.3 million. We financed about $2.3 million worth of energy efficiency improvements they made to that building, and they agreed to voluntarily assess themselves to pay for it over time. New roof, new lighting, new windows, mechanicals. In a home, it could be a new roof, new windows, new furnace. You know, people could be in a situation where the furnace is old and breaking down, and instead of putting it on a credit card at an interest rate that, you know, is 14% or so, these interest rates on these PACE assessments range from as low as 2.99% up to about 8%. A lot of that has to do with the length of the thing you're financing and how long the PACE is in effect. You know, we're anxious to get it going. We had an announcement on Thursday. I got an email today from a woman in Monroe Falls. They're not in the district yet. And, you know, it's a cart before the horse thing. We want to do this right and make sure we get it right and take our time. In fairness to Renovate, they're not going to start investing in all the infrastructure to put this in place until we have communities opting into the plan. They've got a couple people they've already hired in Ohio. We met one of them on Thursday for the first time, and we think this is going to gain some momentum as we go forward. He suggested that it could be done by the end of the fourth quarter. So then I'll ask questions if there are any. I'll do my best, Allison, and I answer.
If I can, I might like to add, though, according to what we talked about on Thursday, it's contiguous communities as far as involvement goes.
Well, the ESID itself is, so it's not a problem for you because you're already in, but
Right.
if Twinsburg wanted to join, it's going to take us a couple months to get up to Twinsburg because
yeah.
Hudson needs to join first.
Okay.
As farthest north we are is Cuyahoga Falls.
Also, you mentioned, the lady mentioned 5, 10, or 15 years. I think in the paperwork here it says 20 also. Is that correct?
Yes, it would depend on what's being financed. Something like a roof with a longer
So
useful
it could
life.
go up to at least 20 years.
Yes, it's depending on the item that's financed as well as the credit score of
And
the.
the FICO score of 620, it says.
Yes, that's a minimum.
So along those lines those numbers aren't dictated by the resident whatsoever. It's dictated by the parameters set forth.
Yeah, we wanted to have some kind of
Okay.
guidelines in place.
So if, let's, for example, a roof is 15 years and the resident wants 5, are they able to choose that, or
Yes,
Yeah,
they are?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
there would be a maximum. So for, let's say, a lighting improvement, you wouldn't be able to finance that over 15 or 20 years because the useful life of the lighting isn't that long. But you could go up to that amount for something with a longer useful life, like a furnace or a roof.
Thank you.
How long does it normally take to process one of these and the people be accepted or denied?
It's done at point of sale. So when the contractor is there, he or she would approve or deny right at point of sale. But at that point, that's just kind of the start of the process. After the contractor leaves, there's follow-up calls that Renovate America does in order to go line by line through the loan agreement so that the homeowner understands exactly what they're agreeing to, that they're agreeing to the voluntary assessment, the terms of the loan, the length, the APRs, everything they have to initial line by line in order to make sure that the property owner understands it. And then the final consumer protection in the process is that the homeowner must sign a completion certificate that the work was done and the work was done to their standards before the contractor will be paid for the project.
How do these people get there to have a point of sale? Are they going door to door? Are they being called in by the resident?
Well, that's part of the infrastructure that needs to be put together. I think once Renovate firmly plants their flag, go to cities that have licensing with contractors and try to vet people through local communities. I don't see contractors going door to door. This is not like, you know, you had a hailstorm or something. These are gonna be, you know, people who have been vetted by Renovate. You probably would go to their website, I think, Renovate's website, get a list of contractors that serve the greater Akron area. We'll probably be putting that on our website. I think the county will do that too, because it comes together. Right now, that's all not fleshed out.
You have to understand, we just got this stuff like Friday.
Yeah.
So that's not, and with the 182-page packet, it was a little difficult to get through all of it. If I recall correctly, from what I have managed to drudge through, there's a thing, a clause in there that says that one resident could take out several of these, that as long as they were still pending in it and haven't been, you know, hasn't been actually to the tail end of being denied. So that means if somebody was to want to get the new roof and then next week they decide, oh, well, I want a furnace, or if somebody contacts them in some manner.
I think that's conceivable, but again, it would have to work with them. The loan to value, you know, they're not taking out a loan, but you can still calculate debt service coverage and know whether or not it fits on that home. So they may not be able to do that because they couldn't take out that much, they couldn't borrow that much.
Well, and I get, my point is that since I really could not read the PowerPoint that we were given, I went on my own little search, and then I ended up with the PowerPoint from the consumer agency, Legal Consumer Protective Agency. And there were some issues that they said that people had taken out more, and then when they got their assessment, somehow they did not recognize this to be able to stop any of it. And then the people were ending up with assessments that was tremendous amounts. I want to make sure that's can't happen.
Well, that's why I think we're the first counties in the country to try to adopt some consumer protections up front. And, you know, you could Google residential pace, and there are some things that aren't flattering. We want to avoid that. We've been working on this for a couple of years. We found Renovate to be reputable. It was deep infrastructure. There are technology companies more than anything. I mean, they're only going to give these contractors that they certify access to the software. It lets them talk to the homeowner right outside, do all the pricing, you know, tell the resident what they're entitled to from a credit standpoint. And before the resident agrees to accept it, there's a follow-up call from Renovate that walks them through a checklist to make sure what you just described doesn't happen.
Okay.
And, you know, there's probably going to be a rogue contractor or two, and that's Renovate's problem to deal with that and boot them out, make sure they're not outselling the product.
So the federal government hasn't actually put it in place yet for these protective things.
No,
So we're making up.
Talked about it, but we haven't seen anything yet. It's probably going to happen. I think based on what we saw earlier this summer, we're in excess of what the legislature was thinking of doing.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that they were. Another issue that I had was if somebody is unhappy, the only way they can settle this is through arbitration.
Well, I mean, yes. The other thing I've seen is the one community in California I know of in particular, there were several hundred deals done, residential projects. A dozen residents were unhappy. They came to city council. City council opted out of the program. And, you know, I mean, that's the way for the community to deal with it. It's voluntary on your part, whether you want to offer it or not. So the residents then would have to go through an arbitration process.
Yeah, I just don't find arbitration particularly friendly to the individual consumer. And when it comes down to it, one person going up against a company. So it's my personal belief. I don't like arbitration when it comes to individuals. Has this got anything, this has got to do with the legislation that's up before us, 85 and 86, correct? So there were some changes, and maybe I'm getting, and if I'm out of your realm, you can tell me on this, but while I have you here kind of trapped, they had
Here, I don't feel trapped.
the amendments in front of us that they were wanting to make to some of the way you operate. I'd have to pull it up exact wording. Well, I have the changes, but I don't have the original. What are the change? I don't know what the changes are. I just know this is what you want, but I don't know.
So I'll explain for Chris because when the ESID board had started, the legislation essentially didn't allow for it to operate as a tax exempt entity. The reason they're asking us to act on these bylaws, it'll allow the ESID to remain as tax exempt entity. As it was formulated, it could be a taxed entity. So the DFA and the legal counsel for the DFA has asked the council to consider passing this before October, or soon, before October, before they have to file their tax return. So this will meet their tax exempt status. So the bylaw changes relate to tax exempt status.
Okay, well, actually, I had asked for a copy of this back in September. So I still want that copy of the rules, regulations, bylaws. To me, it's gobbledygook because I don't know what the current status is to what we're changing. I understand what you're telling me and why we're doing it, but I want to see what's there now.
And all the communities that are currently in the ESID are being asked to pass this amendment. You are in the ESID. You have a member on the board of the ESID. So,
Who's that?
Robert.
Oh, okay. Thank you. But I still want a copy of whatever they are now and not just what it is you want to change something to.
I'll get a copy of that to Mr. Fowler, and he can forward that to you.
Okay, thank you.
Now, the payment's made monthly along with the mortgage payment. It goes into escrow, or will it be made straight to the institution?
Renovate will work with the borrower to kind of talk through some of this, the logistics of it. If the homeowner is currently escrowing, they'll help them, give them the steps that they'll need to take to contact their mortgage company in order to escrow those payments. If they're not on an escrow account, they wouldn't have to do that. It would just go on the regular property taxes, and it would go twice a year on the property taxes when the regular property taxes came out. So it would really depend on the individual homeowner's mortgage requirements to escrow. And if they are required to escrow, it would Renovate's contractors would help them do that.
What if somebody actually wanted to make the payments monthly or bi-monthly? Could they do that, or they're just going to have to put it back and hope they have it when it comes tax time?
Well, it's on the property tax. The assessment is part of the property tax, so they're not paying Renovate or the contractor directly. They're paying it through this voluntary assessment on the property tax.
So the three commercial deals we've done, if you go to the county website and look at those properties, you would see ESID assessment.
Similar to like a lighting assessment or a roadway assessment that an individual community would do.
Well, I'm not as concerned for commercial property as I am for residential property. I just see that it could be more burdensome to a resident as opposed to commercial. And would this be? Maybe I got this wrong, but I didn't get the impression it would be tax exempt.
The tax exempt status ties back to the ESID organization.
Tax deductible?
That's what I want. Thank
They
you.
would, the homeowner would have to.
The authorizing entity, the Akron-Summit County Energy Special Improvement District, is a tax-exempt organization.
Homeowner would have to contact their tax professional to see if this would be an authorized deduction from their personal property taxes.
I notice on the, I'm sorry, Charlie, you done?
For now.
I notice on the one page here, it says that this is, of course, Lucas County. it says approves application on behalf of local jurisdiction. Let's see, where is it? Lost it. I thought it said something about online application.
So,
Must have missed it.
Renovate America wants, they need one statewide entity to have implementation authority.
Mhm.
They came to us, they came to the major port authorities in the state. We have authority to finance projects in other counties. We've done things in Franklin County, Montgomery County, Mahoning County. If you looked up the Toledo Lucas County Port Authority, you would see that they're a leader in energy efficiency financing in the country. So the port authorities decided that Toledo would be best suited to be the implementing authority. So that cooperative agreement actually lays the responsibility for a lot of the administration and relationship with Renovate onto the Toledo Lucas County Port Authority to approve the projects that you're talking about. There's an executive committee of the ports that have set up the program, and I'm on that. But you're right, Toledo's got most of the responsibility.
It does say, I just located, I missed a black box there. It says property owner files electronic application for R-PACE, and then it goes through the steps.
Correct.
So would this be set up the same way here, that you would be able, a homeowner would be able to file it electronically?
It's going to go to the county.
Mm-hmm,
Let's say there's a half dozen properties in Norton that are in this next year.
mm-hmm.
The county's gonna send that payment to the city. City's gonna certify it, send it to the Toledo Lucas County Port Authority, and they're gonna gather up all of the Ohio payments, provide them to Renovate. That's the mechanics of, that's the short version of it.
I know what you're saying, okay.
So you do have that responsibility. The county's gonna send them to you.
Once a year.
Certify them once a year, and send them to Toledo. And there'll be instructions on how that gets done, but I'm sure at some point in time, I'm gonna hear from the council clerk or someone about where we send these things, so.
One other thing I noticed, if I could, I noticed that the if I take out a loan to do whatever to my home, and then 5 years from now the loan is still in my possession, and I sell the home, it says there are certain circumstances where it's not transferable to the new owner, and I would have to pay it off when I sell the home. Is that because the new owner might not have a 620 FICO score?
No, that would be based more on the negotiations of the sale of the home.
Of the what,
So
I'm sorry?
The sale of the home.
Okay.
So there could be a situation where you go to sell your home and then the buyer's mortgage company says that all outstanding special assessments need to be paid off before the sale of the home. It wouldn't be necessarily tied to the creditworthiness of the new buyer.
Okay, so it's not the process itself that's would hold it up as far as the person not being qualified to take the loan. It's whether when they, like you said, negotiated the sale and everything, it would be taken care of there.
Right.
So as long as the two property owners buying and selling agreed, as long as they agreed, it could stay on the property taxes at the county until
Yes.
the end of it. Okay.
Can you, by any chance, speak to the popularity in the, I think you mentioned 4 states that are doing it currently? Is it used a lot, do you know?
Yeah, it's pretty wildly successful.
Two of the states, California and Florida, are really on the cutting edge of energy efficiency for, obvious reasons, especially with things that you don't do a whole lot in Ohio, like solar projects and things like that. And then the third state is Missouri. So this is the 4th state for the rollout, and I know that Renovate's looking at other states too, but they felt that Ohio, with the diversity of the population, as well as the geography and the climate, was a good fit for some of these improvements.
There is a handout in that, it's like maybe page 3 or 4, it just talks about the number of homes that actually live.
Okay, the And I appreciate you coming forward, and I'm up in the air on this totally in my own mind, but the concern I have a little bit as I weigh this is what effect, if let's say this becomes wildly popular in Norton, what effect will this have on fire levies, school levies, children's services, parks, libraries, such like that, when the homeowner has bound themselves with all kinds of debt on their property taxes, and they see another tax coming, and they say, wait a minute, I can't afford another tax. That's an unintended consequence that I personally have a concern with, as well as Mr. Gaynor kind of hit it. You go to sell your home, and now you've got a conflict. So I'm not against it, but I just think those things need brought to light.
No, it's a valid concern, and if you're thinking about a resident, though, that's going to spend $10,000 or $15,000 on a new roof, and they need that new roof, they're going to have that, and they can't pay for it up front. They're going to have that payment either through a tax payment or financing that the contractor can offer outside of a PACE program, or on a credit card or something along those lines. So this is just another mechanism to pay for necessary repairs.
How does the interest rates on these loans, do they fluctuate or
Fixed through the life of the loan.
I'm sorry?
They're fixed through the life of the loan.
Through the life of the loan? And I think someone asked now, what right now, if we were to do this, do you know the interest rate, or is that dependent on the capital that's raised because of us joining?
Go ahead.
We've been told pretty consistently that it's between 2.99% and 8%.
Depending on the term of the loan. So the longer the term of the loan is, the higher the interest rate. So if you were doing a 15-year term, you're going to be near the top end of that, whereas if you're only financing for 5 years, you'd be at the lower end of that.
If everybody else is done, I'm taking back over here. And I don't know if you can help us, and Justin isn't here, so maybe Mr. Fowler or the mayor can help me. But in our ordinance, in Section 6, it says to allow the residents of the city of Norton to take advantage of financing for the cost of special energy improvement projects available to them for a limited time. What does that mean? Do you have any idea, or?
I think it means you've got the ability to opt in, you've got the ability to opt out.
And I think from the wording of that language is that it limits the amount of time that one can spread those costs over if they elect to participate in this program. You know, it's going to be a term of 5 to 20 years, depending on the life expectancy. And so for a limited time, and I think
It's not a permanent assessment on your property taxes.
Right.
It's a set assessment based on the terms of the financing.
Okay.
What guarantee does the homeowner have that they're going to be getting the best contractor, the best pricing, so forth? What happens if they get a price from somebody on your list, they have another contractor bid the job, and there's quite a discrepancy?
If the other contractor's gone through the vetting and the training and the certification, then I think the homeowner has the right to choose who they want, but if they're not part of Renovate's program, then that wouldn't be the case.
And we wouldn't ever say that we would guarantee that a contractor certified by Renovate will be your lowest price. There could be other lower price options that don't include the PACE financing. But again, that would be just like any major home improvement project on the due diligence of the purchaser.
Thank you.
And that would fall under, and again, I'm just doing this out of memory of what the many pages that I tried to get through. It seems like it had said that there are some things that are already set up that could be cheaper, for lack of a better word, than what could be offered through this. Is there any way that can be made the people made aware of it before they get involved into something like this, to know that there's another avenue? Is that something that would happen under the vetting?
That's part of that follow-up call. It's part of the federal standards of the know before you owe policies, that the follow-up phone call after the contractor's already left, so there's no high-pressure situation with the homeowner, takes you through all of the terms of the financing so that the person financing the improvement would know exactly the terms of the financing and what the implications of those are.
So in other words, if the buyer doesn't catch it, then it's not going to be, somebody from the county or from one of these organizations isn't going to say, you know, actually you could get this better through, get a better deal through one of the agencies serving the county. Am I making myself clear on that? Do you understand what I'm saying?
I think you're, you know, this is not home energy assistance or anything like that. These are people that aren't going to be eligible for those kind of programs.
Okay. They wouldn't be eligible for this either.
They could potentially, I mean,
If they were eligible for that kind of help, they wouldn't really be eligible for this
probably not,
financially.
no.
Okay. Thank you.
I would say if it makes you feel more comfortable, maybe you're the first community we've done this. We're not charging anything for this, so we're not doing this, you know, as from a profit perspective. The county thinks this is a good policy to make available to Summit County residents. And so we have worked with what we think is the most viable venue to bring it into the county, and have put a lot of the responsibility on the Toledo Port. Your cooperative agreement involves them. So you know, we're not policing the program. It's policed by Renovate, and it's being monitored and administered through the Toledo Port Authority.
And again, with the ultimate authority to authorize the use of the program in the hands of the city council, who can opt in or out at any time.
You have ultimate authority.
Anything further? Any further questions, discussion, or any further comments?
No, we appreciate the time.
Thank you, Mr. Burnham. Ms. Moritz, we thank you for coming in. And if anybody thinks of anything, I'm sure we can get those to the council clerk and she can forward that to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, we will continue with communications from the public. Janice Back. Please give your name and address, and you have 5 minutes.
Thank you. My name's Janice Back. I live at 3856 Golf Course Drive. I'm here tonight to reiterate concerns about our road conditions and the water that's on Golf Course Drive. I think that all of you did get the video through the email that Gary sent out. I also have some pictures. This problem has been occurring for quite some time. I've been there for 33 years, and the road has never been anything but patched, and there's never been anything done for any of the drainage. So I'm here just to try to re-point that out again so that it stays on the top as things go forward and are planned. With the massive water runoff from various areas on Golf Course Drive, we're hoping that you, the governmental body of the City of Norton, will take part in the resolve. This is not a one-time event. Again, it happens over and over throughout the year, and there's far too much water for any of the current culvert pipes or ditches to handle. And I do have some pictures that I can pass over, and you can see by the pictures that, along with the video, that the water traveling south on the residential side of the road is not even using the ditches. About 90% of the time, it's using the road. So this is not just something that's on the golf course side, it's also on the residential side. There's something drastically wrong with the drainage issue in that area, and with it being green space already to build, which is going to happen, I'm hoping that you will all be well aware of that green space will be taken up quite a bit, and then the water will really have nowhere to go. With time, the water issues will also wash away what we cannot see under Greenwich Road, and you'll see through the pictures that this water all rushes down to Greenwich Road, and I'm sure that's not good for the roadbed itself. The grade for the drainage of the ditch on Greenwich Road between Shellhart and Golf Course Drive, there's Shellhart, Golf Course Drive, and then there's a culvert right in the center of the golf course. And the water that comes off of Shellhart goes down to that culvert. And then from that culvert to Greenwich Road, it doesn't know where to go because everything is rushing off the golf course. And then there's a lake that happens, and then it starts going over the road. So it's really severely damaged over the years with other things in the traffic and such, the road conditions that we have there too. The road is horrible. Right now, he did patch it, and it is doable. 2 months ago, it wasn't. So I'm just approaching you tonight, not just with another issue. I'm also hoping to present an idea that could make it all work. Not for just those that already live there, and I believe there's 16 homes there and then 8 properties up past that are undeveloped, but also for those that will be living on the Barberton Brookside land in the future. So please consider working with your engineer, the new developer. I don't know if a hydrologist has been called in that could take a look, at the water flow issues there. Just to work with these people, maybe create a proper storm drainage system for that area. And right now is prime time to tackle this because it's all just, ground level starting up. And I'm also asking, and I think the other residents are too, to talk to the developer, work with them to bring Golf Course Drive up to current residential street standard as part of their development. That way the whole area is fed good in and out from all their properties, and it would all be a beautiful thing that way. And this will help keep the values of our homes up, along with the homes that will be built over there also. So I know you've all heard it before. I'm just here to say it again because I just would like to see it kept on top so that it's considered as the plans go forward. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Back. If you could, the clerk of council will come and get those pictures, and if you could leave a copy of your comments with her so that they can be included in the record, we'd appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you. David Maxon?
I've already spoke to him and he left.
He left? Okay. Tanya Vanderveen?
How's everybody today?
Good.
Excellent.
Name and address, please.
Oh, Tanya Vanderveen, 3004 Union Street, Norton. So last week I stood up here and asked this council 6 questions. I'm returning tonight to ask if there are any answers to any of those 6 questions. And an additional item that I wanted to ask was that since the city now owns the parcel behind my home, which is parcel 4601076, I want to know if you're going to farm it until such time arrangements are brought forth with the development that we all know will eventually come, but it's always farmed and soy is planted, and it's become overgrown, and I'm worried about, infestation of insects. I did email the city administrator on the 18th at 6:27 p.m. asking this question. I had not gotten a response. I realized he's very busy, so I thought that I would pose it to council tonight to see what, if anything, the plans were for that, for the farming that's always gone on.
And I will check on the status to the answers to the questions that you asked last week. I haven't heard anything about that, so I will check on that and find out what the status is of that.
Actually, I can answer the one about the boats. That would not be under the junk vehicle ordinance. That's actually covered under the recreational things. Boats are listed there as to how that would be handled, I do believe. is where I would look at. I think 1607. I didn't bring that information with me. 0.06, but that is listed when somebody has something parked, like trailers and such.
What is the ordinance number?
It's out of memory, so
What
I
do you
think
think
it's
it is?
1607, but I'm not sure, or 1207. But it's not covered under the junk vehicles. I think that was more for the cars and trucks and such.
It'd be under recreational,
Yes.
RVs, things like that.
Okay,
Yeah, that specifically says boats in there.
okay. Very good.
Mr. Kernan.
Yes, Mr.
You know,
Fowler.
we have not taken ownership of the property, so we are not the owner of the property, so we can't answer questions hypothetically because we haven't closed on the property yet.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right. Committee of the Whole, are there any reports from standing committees? All right, letter A, Energy Special Improvement District bylaws. Ms. Whipke.
Well, I would say that basically we'd covered this when we had our guests here. I don't have anything that I can add to it. If anybody else has anything they want to speak on now.
Nope.
If not, then I make a motion to add ordinance 85, 2019 to tonight's agenda for first reading. Is that
I'll-
what?
I'll second. This is going to go 3 full reads.
There's no urgency. We just have to have it passed by, really September would be great.
I only had this down for discussion tonight, but if you want to add it tonight, because Mr. Fowler said we could add it next week.
There's no urgency.
Add
We
it
can
next
add it
week.
next week.
Let's
It's fine.
add it next week.
I'll withdraw
Okay.
my second.
So I'm going to remove that motion and make a motion to add this to council's agenda for next week. I read the wrong line.
I don't think that takes a motion to move, just add it to next week's agenda along with the
Okay.
next one.
Ordinance, or letter B, Ms. Whipke.
Again, basically, we covered this in our presentation, unless somebody else has something. If not, then I would like to see this get moved to council's next agenda next
Okay.
week.
It'll be on the next agenda. Letter C, Ms. Whipke.
I can't even write anything down.
Nope.
Okay. Item C, this is Cementech, and it's ordinance 87, 2019, we're looking to move. And this is to not exceed $673,200. If I recall correctly, the bid was for like $612,999. So I'm taking it that this is accounting in case we had an overage.
Yes, 10%. We award our contracts with 10% just to contingency, just so we can address any issues. It's a 100% assessed project.
Correct.
The gentleman will get credit for any connections that are made to the project throughout that. There were some questions about timeline, but that's the project awards a contract with a 10% contingency.
And just for the public's information, this is the Cleveland, Maslin, Loyola Oak area for the Meeting Place, and I believe that the church, maybe the general store, and Rick's was going to be involved in this. Anyone else? If not, then I make a motion to add ordinance 87, 2019 to tonight's agenda for first reading, and I believe this carries emergency language with it.
I'll second.
Right, there's a motion and a second to add ordinance number 87, 2019 to tonight's agenda for first reading. Is there any further discussion? Would the clerk call the roll, please?
Ms. Whipke?
Yes.
Mr. Pelot?
Yes.
Mr. Gaynor?
Yes.
Mr. Carratt?
Yes.
Mr. Towsley?
Yes.
Mr. Kernan?
Yes. Letter D, NOPEC, joining COG and gas aggregation program. Mr. Pelot.
Thank you, Mr. President. These two ordinances go together. The first one is to authorize the administration to join the NOPEC, which is Northeast Ohio Public Energy Council. Essentially, what they do is think of any volume buy. The more customer base you have, the better pricing that you can get from the vendors and stuff like that. So in this case here, it deals with gas. So the more people that are involved and you're able to represent, you should be able to negotiate better pricing for those individuals. So it would be an opt-out program, correct?
It's very similar to what we do currently, right? We just use a broker, and this is essentially allowing the Council of Governments to operate as our broker. Essentially, that's the significance of the change. Now, we would still use the broker for our electric. My intent is to keep it there. When I looked at historically, the gas rates that NOPEC had compared to where we were was about 50 cents less. So it was hard for me to not. There's no benefit in staying with the current broker if I can save our resident 50 cents per MCF.
On average, though we had good gas prices, this one even beats what we were able to set up before for the residents. So it's going to save residents money. So anybody have any questions on this?
In the Development Finance Authority, were they one of the ones that had recommended this as well? Seems, I don't know where I've tied that in with
The
this.
county has NOPEC. The county uses NOPEC in all the townships.
Okay.
So NOPEC does all the gas and electric aggregation for the townships through the county.
Okay.
They are not requesting anything. This is just through our research, and we thought it'd be a good opportunity for us to try to save money and be a part of another Council of Governments. That's what I want to do.
And this is only for gas.
Only for gas, and we'll own as long as I sit here, however long that is. My intent is to keep it that way because us having that electrical flexibility, I think you all saw what benefit it brought the community last time.
Like I said, it's an opt-out, so if you don't like the price that is negotiated, you can opt out and choose your own and go that route.
Another option.
Anyone else have any questions?
And there is no opt-out fee, right?
No fees. Correct.
And any timeline on these?
So we're going to try to, I know Carrie's working, they have to have 2 public hearings. So we'll hopefully have a public hearing next week and then one the following week. We do have to pass it July 8th because of the opt-in. I think we start with the first billing in October, or the billing of October. So everything has to get in place before October.
We're going to get the advertisement for the public hearing out to the paper tonight. So
There's no 15-day time limit.
no,
or
it
anything
has to be
involved with
published one time within the 2 weeks before the public hearing.
Just real quick, you mentioned public hearing, and I understand everything you just said about that. I just remembered, though, is there a notice or anything for a public hearing on the zoning changes? Is that, Carrie, is that already set up?
Yes, that is set up.
So isn't that also going to be next week?
No, it's actually going to be on July 8th because that one did have a timeline I had to comply with.
That's what I thought. So,
I had to have 2 weeks before the hearing.
okay.
But this is, you advertise once.
Okay, so
within
we
2
will
weeks.
not end up with 2 public hearings at the same meeting.
On June,
July
or
8th. we will.
July 8th.
Yeah, we'll have 2 public hearings
At the same meeting.
at the same meeting.
Okay, that's what I was getting at, just so everybody knows that it's,
And do these need emergency language?
No, I think you can just leave them as no emergency.
Okay.
It'll take effect after 30 days, but we all have time. As long as they get passed before break, it goes into effect in August, and we can do all our work, get mailings out, and do all that.
Any other questions, discussion? I move that we add ordinance 80 and 81 to tonight's agenda.
No second.
There's a motion and a second to add ordinance 80, 2019 and ordinance 81, 2019 to tonight's agenda for first reading. Any further discussion? Will the clerk call the roll, please?
Mr. Pelot?
Yes.
Ms. Whipke?
Yes.
Mr. Gaynor?
Yes.
Mr. Carratt?
Yes.
Mr. Towesley?
Yes.
Mr. Kernan?
Yes. Anything further for committee of the whole?
Mr. President?
Yes, Mr. Towesley.
I do have a question for you. On the agenda, ordinance 75, 2019, it says third reading only. Is it your intention to vote on that or just?
So a lot of those say third reading only. Only ordinance 70, 2019 is going to have a third reading only. The rest of them we're going to move to adopt.
Okay.
So that was just an error on the agenda.
So on that note, I have a couple issues with ordinance 75.
Okay.
And I apologize to council for bringing it on the third reading, but I was on vacation the day
That's okay.
before it was introduced, and to be honest, I didn't really look it over carefully until this week.
Sure.
A couple of the issues I have, concerns I have with the new proposal is, I don't know if everybody has it in front of them or not, but letter B says whether licensed or unlicensed. It's describing a junk vehicle. And I have pause that if the state of Ohio says your car is eligible to be on our roads, the city of Norton's going to say you can't have that car in your yard. That's my first issue.
If I'm not mistaken, I mean, you can buy a license for anything. Doesn't mean that it's necessarily road-worthy. Once it's so old, it doesn't have to go through any of the emissions testing or anything like that.
I understand that, but if someone's willing to invest $50 into their piece of junk, I just have an issue with that myself. Also, the 4 points that you have to meet 2 of. Point number 1 says the car has to be 3 years old or older, and point number 4, a market value of $1,500 or less. Well, I know, just for example, my son, when he turned 17, he bought a car for $1,200, and it was definitely more than 3 years old. And I appreciate that within the exhibit, it gives room for common sense for the city administrator. If, say, you went on vacation for 2 weeks, and now all of a sudden you get a note. But I also understand there are times where the city administrator, through certain circumstances, has to go by the letter of the law when things occur in certain ways. I would prefer myself to see that $1,500 be at least under $1,000 myself. But those are just the concerns I have going forward.
Okay, so I think when it comes up for its third reading, we can bring it up for further discussion, and the chair will accept proposed amendments, and we can vote on those, or we'll accept a motion to only have a third reading and move it to a fourth reading, so there can be more discussion. So we can just, if you want to, when we get to that, we'll go ahead and take a look at that. At those
Okay.
options. How's that?
Yeah, and like I said, I apologize. That's why I said it now instead of right when we were reading. I didn't want to drop it on you guys.
That's okay. Thank you. Anything else under committee of the whole? All right. Consideration of minutes. The minutes of the regular council meeting of June 17th, 2019. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections to those? Those minutes will be accepted as published. Reports from officers, boards, and commissions. Mayor?
I'll hold off this evening. Thank you.
Mr. Fowler?
It really is not. So the street paving should be wrapping up this week. They are working in the Norton Acres allotment today. Should have finished the top coat, so I'm hopeful and optimistic that that'll be wrapped up this week. Union Street, the 1105 Union Street, we should be the owner of that by the end of the week as well. Hopefully all the title work will be filed and everything will be completed. I've asked for a pre-demolition inspection to start that process. I'd like to get that demolished within a few weeks. The city engineer and I did some drive abouts today looking for 2020 street paving, and some thoughts for our future for grant applications for roads. Again, I should have those for you by July 8th, so you at least have an idea of what we're thinking. The Eastern Road bid, I know we've kind of talked, I know Mr. Kernan spoke to this. We cannot award the Eastern Road bid until the Ohio Public Works Commission sends us our agreement. So we may have to have that until July 8th. It may be a little while. We are waiting on them. I emailed them last week asking them. Typically it arrives the second or third week of June. We send it to Columbus and we get it approval for July 1st. So I'm hopeful that that'll be ready here shortly. We did, just to kind of give you an idea, we did have a change order on Cleveland-Massillon Road that adversely affected our cost to the tune of $42,000. It went to arbitration. They had to bore and jack one of the sewer line. So we'll have one change order on that project already. Johnson Road is out for bid currently, so I'm hopeful that we can get those bids back soon so we can award that before you all go away on break. But just wanted to let you know it's out for bid. I also ordered an appraisal of the Mungo property. A lot of reasons I think maybe we should consider selling that property, but I have an appraisal, should have it back this week. But I think it's a topic for us to have a discussion. I don't know that it adds value to us. And again, if I can turn property over for a profit and we can reinvest that in other things, I want you to consider that going forward. I did. We received an email today back and forth with some legal counsel and Barberton, and there is one line change to the MOU that was requested. I hope all of council was given that change. It is a request of the administration that we input the line under Section 1 for that. Again, we can read that. It doesn't have to. There's no urgency, so to speak, with that. But I want to talk real quick, last thing on flooding and some of the things that maybe you're aware, maybe you're not, that we've been doing in the city. Last year, August, September, we had met almost monthly with Copley and Barberton, and we had sent a cooperative agreement to the Army Corps of Engineers for some significant grant dollars for the Little Farms area. So we've been after grant monies for a long time, almost since I've been here for that project. I don't know where it stands, but the mayor and I had that PACE event on Thursday, and Helen Humphreys was there and just reminded us that we should check up on that. But we have been working collaboratively with Copley and Barberton on these issues, and we're trying to address the flooding. I know it's when you're in the midst of flooding, you feel like you're helpless. We have been working towards resolutions on several matters for the most part since I arrived. So I'll try to get you an update from Army Corps where we stand on that, but we did apply for some Army Corps funding for that. The mayor and I were informed that we did get some USGS funding for a water gauge that we're going to put on Barber Road that'll help us watch the flow of the creek. They gave us, I think, $17,000. It's a $17,000 grant to cover a portion of that project. We're going to split that evenly with Barberton. The cost, our match, will be split evenly. I think it'll cost us $4,000. And then, Barberton is, once the Norton Acres package plant is demolished and the sewer line is operational, they are going to donate that property to us for us to put in retention from the Norton Acres area. So we've been working with both Copley and Barberton and Norton have been working together cooperatively to try to help mitigate our flooding issues in the Barber Road area and how it impacts our businesses. So I just thought you should have an update on what we have been doing in the background to help mitigate that.
Thank you.
President.
Yes, Ms. Towsley.
On that note, and this is probably before you, Mr. Fowler, Mayor, maybe you might know, roughly 3 or 4 years ago, I think it was with no, it doesn't matter, an engineer. We had purchased a gauge to be put somewhere along there. I don't know if you recall that. Is that gauge still active, or what was the results of that gauge?
I'll get back. We just emailed back and forth on that gauge last week, so I'll have to follow. I think it needs repaired is one of the issues, but I'll follow. This gauge, just so you understand, will be a USGS gauge, so it'll transmit the data to the USGS site, so it'll give them a better idea globally of what's going on, where that gauge was a local gauge. This gauge will be a...
Would the new gauge further our stance for grants?
I believe it would, yes. Well, I mean, the government's paying for a majority of it, so I'm you know, the idea is to see how the floodwaters are operating.
Yeah, when you said U.S., I was thinking they're monitoring it
Yep,
as well.
but they're not. That's why we're going with this gauge, and we'll have to pay a monitoring fee, but I think it's worth it for us to see how the water is reacting when a rain event occurs.
Right.
So.
Mr. Fowler, the new park area there with the flooding, trying to mitigate that, raising the roadway and area for the runoff. What's the timeline on that?
Well, we had hoped to be under construction. We have a bid ready to award, but again, we won't be able to award that anytime soon. We're going to set the assessments tonight, hopefully. I think tonight's the third read of that. If not, it'll be the next meeting we have. Once the assessments are set, the equalization board will be established. They'll go through the assessment process. Once that's complete, we'll be ready to roll. If we don't, I imagine that when you come back from break in August, we'll be ready to start construction. That's my intention.
Thank you.
Anything else? We have no public hearings. Moving on to introduction of new legislation, ordinance number 80, 2019. Mr. Pelot.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to offer ordinance 80, 2019 for its first reading and ask the clerk to read it, please.
An ordinance authorizing the city to enter into the Northeast Ohio Public Energy Council, NOPEC, and the execution and delivery of the agreement establishing NOPEC and approving the bylaws of NOPEC.
First reading only.
Thank you. Ordinance number 81, 2019. Mr. Pelot.
Thank you. I'd like to offer ordinance 81, 2019 for its first reading and ask the clerk to read it, please.
An ordinance authorizing entering into a natural gas program agreement with the Northeast Ohio Public Energy Council.
Thank you. First reading only.
Thank you. Ordinance number 87, 2019. Ms. Whipke.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll offer ordinance number 87, 2019 for the first reading. Ask clerk to read it, please.
An ordinance accepting the bid of Cementech Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $673,200 for the Cleveland, Mass. Slim Road Water and Sanitary Sewer Extension Project and declaring an emergency.
And that's for first reading.
Oh, yeah, first reading only,
Right.
sorry.
Thank you. Introduction of prior legislation. Resolution number 67, 2019. Mr. Towsley.
I offer Resolution 67, 2019 for its third reading and ask the clerk to read it, please.
A resolution authorizing the approval and adoption of the Summit County Hazard Mitigation Plan.
And
That's a mistake. We are actually looking
Right.
to, yeah.
I just wanted to say that I have been in contact with both Chief Schultz and Chief D'Alessandro in the past week, and both of them are in favor for this. So I think that's important. They're the ones who really know the ins and outs of this plan. So with that, I would like to make a motion to adopt resolution number 67, 2019.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second to adopt resolution number 67, 2019. Is there any further discussion? Would the clerk call the roll, please?
Mr. Towsley?
Yes.
Ms. Whipke?
Yes.
Mr. Gaynor?
Yes.
Mr. Carrot?
Yes.
Mr. Pelot?
Yes.
Mr. Kernan?
Yes. Ordinance number 68, 2019. Ms. Whipke.
Oh, we're skipping.
I'm sorry.
I thought you said 68.
68. Yeah. That's the next one.
Wow, I don't even, okay.
We just adopted 67.
I got you now, okay.
Yeah.
I offer ordinance 68, 2019 for its third reading. Ask clerk to read it, please.
An ordinance to authorize the administrative officer to enter into an agreement with DLZ Ohio Incorporated for professional engineering services in connection with the construction, management, and inspection of the Johnson Road intersection project in an amount not to exceed $13,903.
I motion to adopt ordinance 68, 2019.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second to adopt ordinance number 68, 2019. Is there any further discussion? Would the clerk call the roll, please?
Ms. Whipke?
Yes.
Mr. Pelot?
Yes.
Mr. Gaynor?
Yes.
Mr. Carratt?
Yes.
Mr. Towesley?
Yes.
Mr. Kernan?
Yes. Ordinance number 69, 2019. Ms. Whipke.
Did we do 57 for the B2, B3 district? That's what threw me off there.
No, that's
We
the,
have to have the
public hearing one
next
that'll be
week.
next week.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I offer ordinance 69 for its third reading. Ask clerk to read it, please.
An ordinance to authorize the administrative officer to enter into an agreement with Ohio Department of Transportation in connection with the South Medina Line Road resurfacing project and declaring an emergency.
I motion to adopt ordinance 69, 2019.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second to adopt ordinance number 69, 2019. Is there any further discussion? Would the clerk call the roll, please?
Ms. Whipke?
Yes.
Mr. Pelot?
Yes.
Mr. Gaynor?
One second, please. On 68, were we not supposed to vote to approve that?
We did.
We did.
We did. Okay. I must have been in another world. Okay, yes, on 69.
Mr. Carratt?
Yes.
Mr. Towesley?
Yes.
Mr. Kernan?
Yes. All right. Ordinance number 70, 2019. I offer ordinance number 70, 2019 for its third reading and ask the clerk to read it, please.
An ordinance authorizing the execution and delivery of waterline easement agreements for Eastern Road Waterline Extension project and declaring an emergency.
We'll put that on for fourth reading next week. Ordinance number 71, 2019. Ms. Whipke?
Thank you, Mr. President. I offer ordinance 71, 2019 for its third reading. Ask clerk to read it, please.
An ordinance accepting the bid of HSH Construction and Excavating Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $589,720 for the Eastern Road Waterline project and declaring an emergency.
At this time, we're just going to have the third reading, and then we're going to have a fourth reading, and we'll do that next week as well, or are we waiting on?
Yes,
Next
next
week.
week.
We'll have the fourth reading and a vote then next week. Thank you.
Ordinance number 72, 2019 would
Me.
be Ms. Whipke.
I offer ordinance 72, 2019 for its third reading. Ask clerk to read it, please.
An ordinance to add section 240.09 of the codified ordinances of the city of Norton.
I motion to adopt ordinance 72, 2019.
I'll second that, but I have a question.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to adopt. Further discussion? Mr. Karen?
My question is, and maybe this was answered in previous times and I just missed it, but it says add section 240.09 of the codified ordinances. And we already have a section that says maximum age of 35, which we're not removing, supposedly. So why would it be add instead of replacement legislation? I don't understand why that's done that way.
I think that's a legal question, but I would say that we're amending section 2409 of our codified ordinances.
But if we're adding that section, then it seems like we would either strike that previous section, we'd remove it somehow, but we're just saying we're adding, and that's why I've got a bit of a problem there. We have a conflicting piece of legislation.
So is there any reason we can't let this go to a fourth reading next week?
Yeah.
All right, if we
I'll
would have...
email the law director and ask him.
Thank you. If we would have a removal of the second and a removal of the motion.
Okay. You remove your second,
I will remove my second.
and I remove my motion.
We'll do a fourth reading next week so we can get that question answered.
Thank you.
Resolution number 74, 2019. Ms. Whipke.
I offer Resolution 74, 2019 for its third reading. Ask clerk to read it, please.
A resolution declaring it necessary to improve New Park Drive in the city by constructing, improving, paving, grading, draining, constructing curbs and driveway aprons, and constructing and installing stormwater improvements, together with necessary appurtenances thereto, comprising the New Park Drive project, and declaring an emergency.
There's no holdup on this one, right? I motion to adopt Resolution 74, 2019.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second to adopt resolution number 74, 2019. Is there any further discussion? Would the clerk call the roll, please?
Ms. Whipke?
Yes.
Mr. Pelot?
Yes.
Mr. Gaynor?
Yes.
Mr. Towesley?
Yes.
Mr. Carratt?
Yes.
Mr. Kernan?
Yes. Ordinance number 75, 2019. I offer ordinance number 75, 2019 for its third reading and ask the clerk to read it, please.
An ordinance to amend Section 660.07 of the codified ordinances of the City of Norton, Ohio.
At this time, and we'll do some discussion, Mr. Towesley, but I think we need to have a motion setting it forward, and then there can be motions to amend if we want to do that.
You want to do that tonight?
What we'll do is we'll bring it up for a vote, and then if you
Okay.
want to move to table it for another night and we can read it one more time, that's fine, unless informally we want to just discuss that now.
Well, for the sake of saving time, if
Okay.
nobody agrees with me, we might as well vote for it. I don't know where.
I don't know what everybody.
In the $1,000, we have no.
I was going to say, I don't think that dollar amount makes a real big difference.
I'd be willing to say 500. I don't know that we're stuck on a dollar amount. Where I think we're at issue, just to clarify where this even originated, was it said all four have to be met, right? So I am not in the place to say that Mr. Towesley's, I'm almost in a favor of eliminating that provision, the dollar amount, because you're asking me to come in and assess someone's vehicle value. So to that point, that's why we went to the 2 out of the 4, because if it's inoperable, that means you don't have valid license plates. And then if it's severely damaged, we have a couple areas in the city where there are no doors on vehicles. Literally was in an accident. And we get into the question of, is the value at $1,500? That's really where I'm having issue anyway. So I'm okay with, if you said, I want to eliminate that provision altogether, still have to have 2 of 4, or you say it's 500, whatever number you decide. I'm just telling you where that originated.
Okay.
I mean, and we're not in a hurry. I mean, we can amend it and come back and do it another reading or two.
I agree. I like the idea of eliminating that phrase, but I think maybe we should carry it over for one more.
2 out of 3. But I mean, so it's even 2 out of 3. It's
Okay, well, if it's okay, then I will make a motion to table it until the work session.
Have a fourth reading.
Table it or just move it to
Move
next
it to
work
the
session?
next meeting or work session,
Okay.
one or the other.
All right. So we want to just go ahead and have a third reading on it tonight, and then we would.
If council's
Yep.
willing to do that, that would be great.
Okay. I don't hear a second to adopt or a motion to adopt, so I guess we're going to have a fourth reading on it.
And
Okay.
I'll put together some revisions, try
Yes,
to get them to
please.
you tomorrow.
Thank
That
you.
way you have a couple days to look at.
Okay.
Well, while we're on the subject,
Uh-huh.
then, what happens if, like some of that you would go scrap it and those prices would go up? Would that be based on a scrap price?
I mean, and that's again, that's where it's it's an arbitrary number, and it's very. I don't know this to be factual, but one of the concerns, every time we've towed a vehicle, we've towed the vehicle back to the person's property and end up paying for it. So we were looking at trying to identify a way, and a lot of cities have that 2 out of 4 or 2 out of 3 or whatever that number would be, and it just gives you a little bit. Again, if it's inoperable, meaning it doesn't have plates and it doesn't have wheels, and you've asked the guy, you all know that we're not actively trying to force people to do something. It's truly after repeated efforts to
And it's
please
complaint,
take care
it's
of this.
complaint driven, right?
And it's complaint driven. So, I mean, but I think you bring up a very valid point that we could really take that out and not really impact the language of the.
So we'll take a look at it again next week. Any further discussion? Okay. Ordinance number 76, 2019, Ms. Whipke.
I offer ordinance 76, 2019 for its second reading. Ask clerk to read it, please.
An ordinance authorizing the administrative officer to execute and deliver a contract with Roadmaster Corporation for cleaning services for city buildings.
Second reading only.
Thank you. Ordinance number 77, 2019, Ms. Whipke.
I offer ordinance 77, 2019 for its second reading. Ask clerk to read it, please.
An ordinance authorizing the execution and delivery of agreements with TCF Equipment Finance for the lease purchase of a Timco Model 600 street sweeper.
Second reading only.
Thank you. Ordinance number 78, 2019, Ms. Whipke.
I offer ordinance 78, 2019 for its second reading. Ask clerk to read it, please.
An ordinance authorizing the purchase of a 2019 Dodge Durango for the Division of Fire and Emergency Medical Services at a cost not to exceed $24,924.
Second reading only.
Thank you. Ordinance number 79, 2019, Mr. Towsley.
Thank you. I offer ordinance 79, 2019 amended for its second reading, and ask the clerk to read it, please.
An ordinance authorizing the execution and delivery of a memorandum of understanding with the City of Barberton to study the issue of forming a joint fire district.
Mr. President, if
Yes,
it's
sir.
okay, I'd like to just quickly read what was amended.
Yes.
Into the minutes. All that was added was the line that says, "The parties acknowledge that there is intent to consider for employment all current employees of each of the fire departments of the parties of this MOU and have a preference as to hiring those current employees for the joint fire district."
And that's an amendment to the actual agreement itself.
Correct.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Ordinance number 82, 2019, Ms. Whipke.
I offer ordinance 82, 2019 for its second reading. Ask clerk to read it, please.
An ordinance authorizing the purchase of a Quebeca SK80CS excavator for the service department at a cost not to exceed $51,154.
Second reading only.
Thank you. Ordinance number 83, 2019, Ms. Whipke.
I offer ordinance 83, 2019 for its second reading. Ask clerk to read it, please.
An ordinance authorizing the purchase of a Top Hat excavator trailer for the service department at a cost not to exceed $15,554.
Second reading only.
And ordinance number 84, 2019, Mr. Gaynor.
Yes, I'd like to offer ordinance 84, 2019. Ask the clerk to read it, please.
An ordinance rezoning of property described as permanent parcel numbers 46-00259 and 46-04166 in the city from a C-REC district to a mixed-use district.
Second reading only.
Thank you. Public service announcements. Mayor Zita.
I have no public service announcements this evening. Thank you.
Anyone have any public service announcements on council? All right. Seeing no other business before council, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion.
Is there a second? All in favor? Aye. We're adjourned.
We've all had too much water. What page are you? 78? Okay.
He says the city.